Most seniors think decluttering is about organization. It's not. In my 25 years of practice, I've found that a cluttered home isn't just an annoyance. It is a source of silent, biological inflammation. Every pile of unfinished business signals your brain to release cortisol, keeping you in a state of low-grade chronic stress that exhausts your energy before you even get out of bed. But what happens when you treat your home like a patient in the ER? Let me tell you about Vivian. At 73, she was standing alone in a 3-bedroom house, drowning in 40 years of memories, paralyzed by the thought of moving. She didn't have months to clean. She had 48 hours. What she did next didn't just clear her house. It lowered her blood pressure and reset her entire nervous system. She used a medical triage protocol I call the Cortisol Detox. 7 ruthless, specific steps to reclaim your life without the exhaustion. And step number 2, it changes how your brain processes decisions forever. You see, Vivian wasn't naturally organized, quite the opposite. After her husband passed, her home became a museum of memories she couldn't bear to touch. If that sounds familiar, I want you to take a deep breath. This isn't a failure of willpower. It's biology. When you look at 40 years of possessions, your brain's decision-making center, the prefrontal cortex, gets flooded. It shuts down to protect you. That's why you feel that sudden wave of exhaustion just by opening a closet door. So, Vivian didn't try to clean. She adopted a technique straight from the emergency room, triage. In the ER, doctors don't spend equal time on every patient. They can't. And you cannot spend equal emotion on every possession. She divided everything into 3 brutal categories. Category 1, vital signs, medications, daily documents, that one coffee mug that fits your hand perfectly. These are the things that support your life today. Category 3 was easy, dead weight. Anything untouched for a year, automatic removal, no negotiation. But then, she hit the danger zone. Category 2, might need it someday. This is where 90% of seniors get trapped. It's the whisper of fear that says, what if? But Vivian realized that someday is just a code word for anxiety. Holding on to these items wasn't making her feel secure. It was keeping her nervous system on high alert. So, she made a ruthless rule. Category 2 gets treated exactly like Category 3. If it's not vital today, it's blocking your tomorrow. She started in the kitchen, the heart of the home. In 15 minutes, she found she had 23 coffee mugs but only drank tea. She had 3 sets of china she hadn't used since 1987. By applying triage, she didn't just clear space. She cleared the noise. But she quickly realized that even with this system, she only had about 10 minutes of focus before her brain started to fog over again. And that is where she discovered the biological timer, a trick that stops burnout before it even begins. But here's the biological reality check that changed everything for Vivian, and it might change everything for you. If you've ever pulled everything out of a closet only to shove it all back in an hour later because you were too sudden, deeply tired to deal with it, please listen closely. You didn't fail. You just hit your metabolic limit. Research suggests that after the age of 60, our decision-making fuel, the glucose in our frontal lobes, depletes faster than it used to. Vivian discovered she had about 10 minutes of clear emotional energy before mental fatigue set in. Once you cross that 10-minute line, your brain switches into preservation mode. You stop deciding, and you start keeping everything just to avoid the pain of choosing. So she stopped fighting her biology and started working with it. She set a timer for exactly 10 minutes. And this is critical, not for a whole room, but for one tiny area, one specific drawer, one shelf. During those 10 minutes, the pressure forced her to trust her gut. She didn't have time to second guess or feel guilty. But here is the rule that made it work. When the timer went off, she stopped. Immediately. Even if she wasn't finished. This sounds counterintuitive, I know. But by stopping before she was exhausted, she preserved her dopamine levels. Instead of dreading the next session, she was ready for it. By the end of day 1, Vivian had completed 24 of these micro sprints. That is 4 solid hours of deep, productive work without a single spike in cortisol. She turned a grueling marathon into a series of victories she could actually win. I want to ask you, have you ever felt that sudden crash of energy after just 20 minutes of cleaning? If that sounds familiar, let me know in the comments. It helps us understand just how common this silent symptom really is. But while the timer gave Vivian the energy to keep going, it couldn't solve the heartache. She still had to face the items that carried a heavy emotional charge, the photos, the gifts, the guilt objects. To deal with those, she had to play a mental game that is almost ruthless. You see, the hardest part of decluttering isn't the physical labor, it's the emotional weight. Vivian realized that every single object in her home was holding a charge of guilt, nostalgia, or obligation. To break that connection, she used what I call the stranger test. It is a simple but brutal shift in perspective. She pretended a complete stranger was walking through her home after she was gone. She looked at a box of 200 crayon drawings from her children's elementary years. To her, they were precious memories. But she asked, would a stranger understand this, or would they just see a fire hazard? When you look through a stranger's eyes, the fog of guilt lifts. You see things with crystal clarity. She kept the 10 most meaningful drawings, the ones that truly spark joy, and released the rest without a shred of guilt. But the most profound shift happened when she faced her closet. Hanging there were 30 years of business suits, the armor of her past career. They represented achievement, respect, and identity. This brings us to a concept in gerontology we call identity evolution. Most seniors clutter their homes for the person they used to be, not the person they are becoming. So Vivian asked herself the future self question. Does keeping this item serve the woman I am growing into, or is it anchoring me to a past that is already complete? Her future self wasn't a corporate executive. Her future self was a grandmother, a watercolor artist, and a traveler. Those suits weren't assets anymore. They were anchors. By releasing them, she wasn't erasing her past accomplishments. She was making physical room for her new adventure. She cleared the dusty sewing machine she never used and replaced it with an easel near the window. She stopped preserving a museum of her history and started building a workshop for her future. But even with these mental shifts, there is one final trap that catches almost everyone. It's the moment right before you let go, the panic of regret. And Vivian found the only way to silence that voice was to do something that might sound a little spiritual. She called it a completion ceremony. And before you dismiss this as just sentimental fluff, you need to understand the psychology behind it. The reason we rescue items from the donation bag at the last minute is because we feel like we are betraying the memory attached to them. We feel like we are throwing away a piece of our past. So Vivian stopped sneaking items out in garbage bags like she was doing something shameful. Instead, she took 10 minutes to hold her favorite business suit. She remembered the promotion she earned in it. She felt the pride one last time. And then, she thanked it. She blessed it to help another young woman start her career, and she placed it gently in the box. By turning the act of letting go into a ritual of gratitude, she switched her brain from a state of loss to a state of contribution. She wasn't losing her past, she was passing it on. She did the same with her husband's things, keeping the few items that brought comfort and releasing the ones that just kept her in grief. 48 hours later, when the moving truck arrived, Vivian wasn't just standing in an empty house. She was standing in a new life. 3 months later, she called me. She said, "Dr. Hartley, I thought I was just clearing out my house, but I was actually clearing out my arteries." Her blood pressure was down. Her sleep was deeper. She is now teaching art classes and, believe it or not, dating for the first time in 20 years. The cortisol detox isn't really about the stuff, is it? It's about making room for the life you actually want to live right now. If Vivian's story gave you even a spark of hope, please share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are ready to make your next chapter your healthiest one yet, click that subscribe button. We are building a community here that believes aging isn't a decline, it's a refinement. I'm Dr. Samuel Hartley. Take care of your home and take care of yourself.